Hello, my name is Douglas Hummer. I'm the Director of Communications and Digital Technology here at the Adult Family Home Council. Today I will be walking you through how to navigate the Live-In Care Survey and explain the instructions and definitions included in it. We will not tell you how to answer any questions, and please answer based on the actual circumstances of the licensed adult family home you are reporting for. If you have multiple licensed adult family homes, please complete a survey for each home. Whichever license you enter into the survey, answer for that licensed home. With that being said, let's begin going through the survey. The purpose of this survey is to estimate the number of adult family homes and live-in caregiver employees potentially affected by the Washington Supreme Court's decision in Bellina v. SureCare. This survey will help the Adult Family Home Council estimate the potential fiscal and operational effects of the ruling on individual homes, Medicaid residents, employees, and the adult family home system. This survey is being conducted for legislative, budget, collective bargaining, and policy purposes. It is not a legal compliance audit, and a provider's response does not determine whether any particular period is compensable or whether the provider owes wages. To start, please provide first and last name, provide a phone number, your adult family home name, the adult family home license number, how many beds, how many residents, and how many current residents are funded in whole or in part through Medicaid. For this final question of how many current residents are funded in whole or in part through Medicaid, enter the number of residents currently living in your home whose care is paid for either fully or partially through Medicaid. If Medicaid pays any portion of a resident's care, include that resident in this number. Once you have completed this section, click Next. Question 8 asks whether this home currently employs at least one live-in caregiver employee. Select the answer that reflects your home's current staffing situation. For purposes of this walkthrough, we'll select Yes so we can continue through the questions that follow. Question 9 asks how many live-in caregiver employees currently work at this home. Enter the total number of employees who meet the survey's definition of a live-in caregiver employee. Please enter a whole number based on this home's current staffing. For demonstration purposes, we'll enter 2. This is only an example to show how the survey works and is not a suggested response. Question 10 asks which live-in caregiver arrangements are currently used at this home. Review each option and select all that accurately describe the arrangements currently in use. More than one option may apply. For purposes of this walkthrough, we'll select a few example options so we can continue. These selections are for demonstration purposes only and are not intended to represent a typical or recommended staffing arrangement. Once you have selected your responses, hit Next. Question 11 asks you to estimate approximately how many additional paid hours per week could be required at this home because of the Supreme Court ruling. Review the ranges provided and select the option that best reflects your estimate for this home. If you are not able to reasonably estimate the number of hours, you may select Unsure of Estimate. For demonstration purposes, we'll select one of the example ranges. This selection is only being used to continue through the survey and is not a suggested response. Question 12 asks you to estimate approximately how many additional full-time equivalent employees may be required at this home. Select the option that most closely reflects your estimate. If you are unable to make an estimate, select Unable to Estimate. Question 13 asks for the estimated additional annual payroll cost for this home. When considering your estimate, the question asks you to include wages, overtime, payroll taxes, workers' compensation, paid leave, and other employer payroll costs. Select the range that most closely reflects your estimated annual impact. If you do not expect an additional cost, or if you are unable to reasonably estimate the additional, select the corresponding option. Question 14 asks whether the current Medicaid reimbursement received by this home would be sufficient to absorb the additional costs you estimated. Select Yes, No, or Partially based on your assessment. If this home does not serve Medicaid-funded residents, there is a specific option for that. You may also select Unsure if you cannot determine the answer. Question 15 asks you to rank how you would prefer to express the increase in Medicaid reimbursement this home would need to absorb the estimated additional costs. The options include an estimated amount per resident per day, a percentage increase, a monthly amount, or an annual amount. Rank the options based on which format would allow you to most accurately express the estimated needs for this home. Question 16 asks you to provide an estimated amount using the format you ranked first in the previous question. For example, if you ranked amount per resident per day first, enter your estimate using that format. If you ranked a percentage, monthly amount, or annual amount first, provide your estimate in that format instead. This should be your own estimate based on the circumstances of this home. The walkthrough will use an example only to demonstrate how the field works. Once you enter your answer, click Next. This section asks about historical live-in employment at this home and the potential impact if the court's decision is ultimately applied retroactively. The survey notes that retroactive relief has not been decided. Please answer based on the history and circumstances of this specific home. Question 17 asks whether between July 2023 and July 9, 2026, this specific home employed any live-in caregiver employees who no longer work at the home. Select yes, no, or unsure based on the employment history of this home. For demonstration purposes, we'll select an example response. This is only to continue through the survey and is not a suggested answer. Question 18 asks approximately how many live-in caregiver employees worked at this home at any time between July 2023 and July 9, 2026. Enter the total number of employees who meet the description during that period. This question is asking about employees who worked at the home during the period, not just the number currently employed today. For demonstration purposes, we'll write an answer that will only continue the survey. Question 19 asks how you would describe the potential financial impact on this home if the decision is ultimately applied retroactively. Review the available options and select the one that most closely reflects your estimate of the potential impact on this home. The options range from no material impact expected to impact that could affect continued operation of the home. If you are unable to estimate the potential impact or prefer not to answer, those options are also available. For demonstration purposes, we'll select one option so we can continue. This example does not represent Adult Family Home Council's expectation of how any home should answer. Once you've selected your answer, click Next. This section asks about potential effects on this home, its employees, its residents, and its ability to continue serving Medicaid-funded residents. Please answer based on what you believe could reasonably occur at the specific home. Question 20 asks which actions might be considered for this home if there is no increase in Medicaid reimbursement or other financial assistance. Review each option and select all that could apply to this home. You may select more than one option. If you do not expect operation changes, there is an option for that. If none of the listed choices fully describe your situation, you may use other. Question 21 asks how many licensed beds at this home could be affected. Enter your best estimate as a whole number based on the circumstances of this specific home. This question is asking about licensed bed that could be affected, not necessarily the number of beds currently occupied. Question 22 asks how many Medicaid-funded residents at this home could be affected. Enter your best estimate as a whole number. Include residents whose care is funded in whole or in part through Medicaid, and base the response only on residents at this specific home. We'll enter an example number for demonstration purposes only. Please use the number that best reflects your own home. Once you've entered your responses, hit Next. We have now reached the final section of our survey. Question 23 asks how concerned you are about the potential impact of the Washington Supreme Court's decision in Bellina v. SureCare on this adult family home. Use the scale from 0 to 10, where 0 means not at all concerned and 10 means extremely concerned. Select a number that best reflects your own level of concern. For demonstration purposes, we'll select an example number. This is only to show how the scale works and is not a suggested response. Question 24 asks, which potential impact concerns you the most? Please select up to 3 options that best reflect your concerns for this home. The choices include possible wage or payment obligations, future staffing and labor costs, staffing levels, financial viability, possible closure, residential disruption, changes to the live-in staffing model, Medicaid reimbursement or state funding, legal or regulatory uncertainty, and another option. We'll select 3 options for demonstration purposes only. These are not intended to suggest which concerns should be most important to you. Question 25 gives you space to describe in your own words how the ruling could affect this particular home, its employees, its residents, or its ability to continue serving Medicaid clients. You may include any factors that are relevant to your home. The form provides examples such as staffing or payroll costs, changes to overnight staffing, recruitment and retention, license or occupied capacity, Medicaid admissions, possible resident displacement, sale or closure, or other impacts not already covered elsewhere in the survey. You do not need to address every example listed. Use this space only for information that accurately reflects your home's circumstance. Example response will be for walkthrough purposes only. Question 26 asks for your email address. Enter the email address you would like to associate with this survey response. Question 27 asks whether you would like to opt in or opt out of receiving future newsletter updates on this topic. Select the option that reflects your preference. Before submitting, review your responses and make sure they reflect this specific licensed adult family home. If you operate more than one licensed home, complete a separate survey for each home. Before submitting, review your responses and make sure they reflect this specific licensed adult family home. If you operate more than one licensed home, complete a separate survey for each home. When you are satisfied with your responses, select Submit, and thank you for taking the time to complete the Adult Family Home Live-In Care Impact Survey. Accurate responses from homes with different experiences and levels of impact help provide a clearer statewide picture.